Rick, how's it going this week?
Awesome, Carl. What's up with you?
Not much. Yeah, if you enjoy our content, as usual, please subscribe to the channel, comment, like, tell us your thoughts. Rick, it's the start of the Formula One season, and you and I are Formula One fans. We've been for quite a time, and it makes me think, maybe risk management could learn something from Formula One's problem at the moment. And for those who don't watch Formula One, let's give them a bit of background. Formula One is kind of boring at the moment. There's only one race winner, and that's Max Verstappen. And nobody seems to have a chance against him. That's a big problem in a high octane sport like Formula One. Makes people tune out, which is something that happens to risk management a lot for many different reasons. Yeah. So Rick, what do you think about risk management's problem? Is it too boring? Can we? What's exactly going wrong with risk, do you think?
You know, uh, let's stick with the Formula One analogy for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, Formula One. I've been a fan for probably 30 years. Okay, and having gone to racing school, etc., it really changes your perspective on these things. But, to be quite frank, not a lot of people are going to go to racing school and spend time in a Formula One trainer. And so the point is a lot of the subtlety is oblivious to people. A lot of what literally goes on under the hood is totally unknown. They think that a Formula One car is just kind of like their own car, but with fatter tires and a little bit more aerodynamic. And it's nothing like that. And, what really brought, and Formula One has always kind of been, in second, third, fourth, even fifth place in North American mindset in terms of motorsports. It's been always way behind NASCAR, which, by the way, with a NASCAR, particularly in the glory days of NASCAR in the 70s and 80s, were actually stock cars.
Right.
Now they're made to look like stock cars, and I think most people realize that, you can't really go to a Chevy dealership and buy, Waltrip's driving. But back in the day, you could. And so that was very relatable. And what, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, what really led to Formula One becoming huge, and in fact led to the race last year in Las Vegas, is the Netflix series Drive to Thrive. I can't remember what it's
Survive.
called now. Yeah, and what that did was it showed what goes on behind the scenes. The amount of level of driver preparation, what actually goes on in the car. You realize very suddenly that, whoa, like, I mean, man, uh, being an astronaut on this space shuttle kind of looks, Mickey Mouse compared to driving a Formula One car, or even compared to an Indy car, because the number of settings in a Formula One car are just so much greater.
Mm-hmm.
And what that did was, first off, it literally showed people under the hood.
Mm-hmm.
It showed people the nuances of the race. But, most importantly, is it showed the personalities of the drivers. And so all of a sudden, a kind of middling driver like Ricardo becomes a media star.
Right.
And, that big booming smile of his, becomes huge. So let's go back into risk management.
Mm-hmm.
Risk management, in most people's minds, is, this kind of boring department that prepares a monthly or a quarterly report. It's kind of all the same. They can kind of relate to it, but they have no idea what goes on under the hood. They have
Mm-hmm.
no idea of the nuances. And they have no idea of the personalities that are making some of the choices as to how things get analyzed, what gets analyzed, and how it gets presented. And so I think that if there's a drive to survive Netflix series on risk management, guess what? Risk management might become cool.
You could be right. You could be right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, part of the fault is on risk managers themselves, right, Rick? I mean, it's not up to the first line to come to us and ask us to sell what we're doing better, right? It's up to us to get out there and show, hey, we've actually got pretty useful tools. We've got interesting ways of viewing the world. We have all these scenarios that we're looking at that you might not have considered, but they're plausible, and this is the effect they'll have. So I think it's really on risk managers to get out and perform almost, right? Get in front of
the communication part of risk management is absolutely key. I've been lucky over the last few years to be invited to speak to lots of different conferences. I'm telling you, if you go to a marketing conference and then you go to a risk management conference, if I took my students to both of those, there is no way that they would ever go into one of those fields, and I'll let you guess which one they will never go into. Risk management ultimately has many components to it. Okay? In my mind, and by the way, not everyone agrees with this first component, is risk managers are to be creative types. In my mind, risk management is about the future. It's about uncertainty, and to get your head around the future and get your head around uncertainty, and I'm including the Rumsfeld, unknown unknowns. You really have to be a creative type. And so you kind of have to be a little bit off balance, to do that, perhaps. But no, we want, risk managers to make accountants look like fun. Okay. The second component of risk management is obviously analysis. Okay. And that's all where the focus is. But the third component, and I would argue the most important component, is the communication. And this is where perhaps if risk managers showed up to their risk presentations with logos on their suits like racing car drivers. I'll give you a true story. Okay. Normally I wear outlandish bow ties, and I try to wear the funkiest socks I possibly can. I have an enormous sock collection. Okay. And I was going to meet the risk department at a certain organization who had a brand new chief risk officer. And before I knew the people in this risk department. So that morning, I intentionally changed my socks from my first meeting to meeting with this organization. And I changed from, funky socks to plain, boring, I think they were plain blue socks. Anyhow, I go into the room with the risk staff. It walks the CRO. And she goes, I am so fed up with you guys being so boring. Do you realize I had an offsite this weekend and I asked everyone to show me their socks, and everyone had on plain blue socks? I'll go, oh.
The one time, Rick.
One time I'm not wearing funky socks. I'm wearing plain blue socks. Yeah. And Formula One, after the first race in Bahrain this year, looks like it's going to be another snooze fest. And so without the marketing, without people showing us what's under the hood, without people illustrating the nuances and the personalities that make Formula One what it is, no one would watch.
Yeah, that's right.
I think there are lessons that that risk management can learn from Formula One.
Yeah, I mean, the one, just to take it in a practical way, Drive to Survive, the commentary that you get on the race. I think they both do a really good job of pointing out what's important, right? You're not watching the entire race anymore. The commentator's drawing your attention to, hey, Horner said this morning, and this means that for future races, and you buy into the narrative of, oh, that's what's going on. This is why this race is so important, and this overtake could matter. I mean, I think that's something Risk can do really well, but I think, as we've spoken about here, we kind of flood information to our audience and expect them to sort of pick up on it, where we should be saying, there's 3 things you need to know: 1, 2, and 3, or
and
even
the
fewer.
implications of it.
Yeah, true.
I want to pick up on something you said in the commentary. I think the commentary in Formula One is fantastic. And what they'll do, oh, there's a bubble there. That was going to cost them 3 corners down.
Yeah.
And by the way, it was a bobble that, if you're just watching it on your TV, you can rewind 3 times before you see the bobble.
Yeah.
Okay, that he went, 3 inches too far onto the curb, and that's going to cost him 3 turns down the road. But they're almost always right. And you see 3 turns down the road, because of being on the curb, an extra 3 inches actually did cause the bobble, which sets up down the road. And that's what risk management has to do. We focus a lot on, here's the facts, just the facts, ma'am. For those of you who are old enough to remember the old Dragnet series, just the facts, ma'am. And it's the implications. It's the communication. But actually, a large part of communication is making sure that your audience is awake to hear it.
Yeah.
So if you say it and they're asleep, was it said?
Yeah. One reason commentary is so important, is so interesting, is because the people commentating used to be drivers too.
Well, yeah, exactly.
They used to be in the business, to draw the analogy back to Risk, which is important. Risk managers used to come from the business, and they no longer really do, right? People go straight into Risk, and they're kind of missing that element of being in the front lines a little bit. So it's another.
Yeah, I think I commented on that in my iRisk article for the month, that basically you need the basic business acumen. And we used to have an old saying, trading a singles futures contract is worth 4 years at MIT. Basically, even if you're on the line for the simplest of things, it gives you such a different perspective for when you go into a staff function such as Risk. Although, again, I almost projectile vomit at calling Risk a staff function, but unfortunately, that's how it's treated in a lot of organizations.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Rick, another race this weekend, Saudi Arabia this time. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be on Saturday evening, so let's see if it's another Max show.
Okay.
Yeah.